The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of the penthouse, spraying expensive liquor across Victoria Bennett's designer heels. Her hands trembled as she stared at the divorce papers clutched in her perfectly manicured fingers, the ink still fresh, the signature unmistakable. After 15 years of marriage, countless charity galas, and building an empire together, her husband Marcus Bennett, the billionaire CEO of Bennett Global Enterprises, had just told her he was in love with someone else. Not just anyone. Their maid, 23-year-old Amara Johnson, the quiet girl from Lagos who cleaned their toilets and made their beds. Victoria's voice came out as a strangled whisper. "This is a joke, right? Marcus, tell me this is some kind of sick joke." Marcus stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Atlanta, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the city lights. When he turned to face her, there was something in his eyes Victoria had never seen before. Something soft. Something she realized with horror that he had never looked at her with, even on their wedding day. "It's not a joke, Victoria. I love her. I'm sorry, but I can't live a lie anymore." The room spun. Victoria gripped the edge of the Italian leather sofa to steady herself. "The maid? You're leaving me for the help? Do you have any idea what this will do to us? To our reputation? To the company?" "I don't care about any of that anymore," Marcus said, and the certainty in his voice was what truly terrified her. "For the first time in my life, I'm choosing love over everything else." Victoria laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "Love? You think that little gold digger loves you? She's after your money, you fool. She's probably been planning this from the moment we hired her." "Don't talk about her like that." Marcus's voice hardened. "You don't know her. You've never even tried to know her. Amara is more genuine than anyone in our circles has ever been." That's when Victoria heard it. The soft footsteps on the stairs. She turned, and there she was. Amara Johnson stood at the entrance to the living room, wearing one of Victoria's dresses, a simple blue number that Victoria had donated to the staff clothing bin months ago. But somehow, on Amara's slender frame, it looked different, natural, beautiful in a way that made Victoria's stomach turn. Amara's dark eyes met Victoria's, and for a moment, something passed between them. Was it guilt? Pity? Triumph? Victoria couldn't tell. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bennett," Amara said softly, her Nigerian accent lilting. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Victoria felt something snap inside her. In that moment, looking at this girl who had destroyed her life, standing in her home, wearing her clothes, stealing her husband, she made a decision, a dangerous one. "Oh, you're going to be sorry," Victoria said, her voice eerily calm now. "Both of you are going to be very, very sorry." Marcus moved to stand beside Amara, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Victoria, please, let's handle this like adults. The lawyers have already drawn up a fair settlement. You'll get the house in the Hamptons, half of my personal assets, and a substantial monthly allowance. You won't want for anything." Victoria picked up her purse, smoothing down her dress with shaking hands. She looked at them both, standing there like some twisted version of a happy couple, and smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You think you've won," she said. "You think this is a fairy tale, that love conquers all, that the CEO and the maid get to ride off into sunset. But you have no idea what you've started. No idea what I know. What I've always known about you, Marcus. About your business. About where your money really comes from." Marcus's face went pale. "Victoria, don't." "See you in court," Victoria said sweetly. Then she walked out, her heels clicking against the marble, leaving behind the life she had built and the husband she had lost. What Victoria didn't know as she stepped into the elevator was that Amara's hand had instinctively moved to her stomach, protecting the secret growing there, a secret that would change everything. And what none of them knew was that someone else had been watching, someone with their own reasons to want Marcus Bennett destroyed, someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment, this scandal, this weakness. The Bennett empire was about to come crashing down, and love would be the least of their problems. If you're already hooked and want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And go ahead and smash that like button if you're ready for this wild ride. What would you do if you found out your spouse was in love with someone working your home? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. 3 months earlier, before the champagne glass shattered and the world exploded, Amara Johnson had stood in the employment office of Bennett Global Enterprises with sweaty palms and a beating heart. The woman behind the desk, Mrs. Henderson, a stern-faced lady with glasses perched on her nose, looked over Amara's resume with barely concealed skepticism. "So you're from Nigeria," Mrs. Henderson said, not looking up. "Lagos, it says here. And you've been in the States for how long?" 8 months, ma'am," Amara replied, keeping her voice steady despite her nerves. "I came on a student visa, but my scholarship fell through. I'm trying to save money to continue my education." Mrs. Henderson finally looked up, her eyes scanning Amara from head to toe, taking the warm but clean dress, the simple sandals, the cheap handbag. "We're not looking for someone temporary, Miss Johnson. The Bennetts need reliable household staff. This is a stepping stone job." "I understand, ma'am. I'm a hard worker. I'll do whatever is needed." Something in Amara's tone must have resonated because Mrs. Henderson sighed and stamped a form. "The position is for housekeeping at the Bennett penthouse. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett are very particular people, very wealthy, very demanding. You'll be invisible, you understand? You clean, you cook when the chef is off, you do laundry, and you don't ask questions. You certainly don't speak unless spoken to." Amara nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. I understand. The pay is $15 an hour, 6 days a week. You'll have Sundays off. You start Monday." That first Monday, Amara arrived at the penthouse at 6 in the morning, just as Mrs. Henderson had instructed. She had expected luxury, but nothing could prepare her for reality. The apartment took up the entire top floor of the building. The marble floors gleamed like mirrors. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they seemed to touch the sky. Artwork that Amara recognized from her art history classes back in Lagos hung on the walls. Real paintings, worth millions. Victoria Bennett swept through the apartment that first morning like a storm, her silk robe flowing behind her, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 6:30 in the morning. She barely glanced at Amara. "You're the new girl," she said, not a question. "I expect the house spotless by the time I return from my morning yoga. The bedroom is off limits until after 8. Mr. Bennett doesn't like to be disturbed before his coffee." "Yes, ma'am," Amara whispered. Victoria paused, turning back with a cold smile. "And one more thing. I've had 5 housekeepers in the past 2 years. They all thought they could take shortcuts, steal little things, get comfortable. They were all wrong. Don't make the same mistake." For the first month, Amara barely saw Marcus Bennett. He left early before she arrived and came home late after she had gone. She learned his habits through the traces he left behind. The coffee cup with a lipstick stain that wasn't his wife's color, hastily hidden in his study. The stress in the wrinkled sheets of the guest bedroom where he sometimes slept instead of the master. The bottles of antacids in every room. The medical bills for stomach ulcers tucked in a drawer. Marcus Bennett was a man drowning in his own life, and nobody seemed to notice. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Amara was cleaning Marcus's study, carefully dusting the mahogany desk, when she heard a sound. A sharp intake of breath. Almost a gasp. She spun around and found Marcus Bennett standing in the doorway, his tie loose and his face gray with pain. His hand clutched his stomach. "Mr. Bennett?" Amara dropped the duster. "Sir, are you all right?" "I'm fine," he said through gritted teeth, but he wasn't. He stumbled forward, and Amara rushed to catch him before he fell. Up close, she could see the sweat beading on his forehead, the way his jaw clenched against the pain. "You're not fine. You need a doctor. Should I call 911? "No," Marcus said sharply. "No doctors. No ambulances. Victoria can't know. The board can't know. If word gets out that I'm sick, the stock prices will tank. Just help me to the couch." Amara half carried him to the leather couch in the study, her small frame surprisingly strong. She grabbed a cushion for his head, loosened his tie further. "When did you last eat?" "I don't remember. Yesterday, maybe?" "That's your problem," Amara said, her fear making her bold. You can't take those ulcer medications on an empty stomach. It makes it worse. My father had ulcers. I know what helps. She ran to the kitchen, ignoring the fact that she was overstepping, that Victoria would fire her if she found out. She made a simple mixture her mother had taught her: warm milk, honey, a pinch of turmeric, soft bread lightly toasted. She brought it back to Marcus, who looked at her like she had grown a second head. "Drink this," she commanded, sounding more like herself than the invisible maid she was supposed to be. Small sips, and eat the bread slowly. Marcus was too tired and in too much pain to argue. He drank, and after a few minutes, some color returned to his face. The tight lines around his mouth eased. "Thank you," he said quietly. "What's your name again?" "Amara, sir. Amara Johnson." "Thank you, Amara." He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "You didn't have to help me." "Of course I did," Amara said simply. "You're a person. People help people." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Later, he would tell her that was the moment he realized he had been living among people who saw him as a bank account, a status symbol, a business opportunity, but never as just a person, never as someone who might need help. That was how it started, not with grand gestures or forbidden passion, but with warm milk and kindness in a moment of pain. After that day, Marcus started coming home earlier. He would find excuses to walk through whatever room Amara was cleaning. They started talking, small conversations at first, about Nigeria and Ghana, where Marcus's grandmother had been born, about dreams and disappointments, about the weight of expectations and the loneliness of success. Victoria noticed nothing. She was too busy with her charity committees, her spa appointments, her affairs. Yes, affairs plural. Amara had found the evidence accidentally while doing laundry. The hotel receipts and text messages Victoria had carelessly left in her coat pockets. Amara had said nothing, but the knowledge sat heavy in her chest. Make sure to drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love connecting with our viewers from all around the world, and if you haven't hit that like button yet, what are you waiting for? This story is just getting started. The first time Marcus kissed Amara, it was raining. Not the gentle romantic rain of movies, but a violent Atlanta thunderstorm that had knocked out the power in half the city. Victoria was in New York for a Fashion Week event, and Marcus had come home early, drenched from a meeting that had gone sideways. Another board member questioning his decisions. Another reminder that the company he had built from his father's small import business was now a beast he could barely control. Amara had been folding laundry in the utility room when she heard him come in, cursing softly. She found him in the kitchen, trying to pour himself a drink in the darkness, his hands shaking so badly the bottle clattered against the glass. "Mr. Bennett," she said softly, and he jumped. "Let me help." "I don't need help, Amara. I need this day to be over." But she took the bottle from his hands anyway, poured the whiskey steadily, handed it to him. Then she did something that surprised them both. She poured herself a small glass too. "My grandmother used to say that troubles shared in the dark stay in the dark," she said, taking a sip and wincing at the burn. "Whatever is bothering you, you can tell me. I'm good at keeping secrets." Marcus laughed, a broken sound. "You want to know what's bothering me? Everything. This company is eating me alive. My marriage is a sham. I wake up every morning in a golden cage wondering when I stopped being a person and became a corporation. I have everything, Amara, everything money can buy, and I've never been more miserable. Money doesn't buy happiness," Amara said. "My mother used to clean houses and Legos for families that had so much wealth they didn't know what to do with it. And they were the saddest people I ever saw. Always wanting more, never satisfied, never grateful for what they had. Your mother sounds wise. She died 2 years ago. That's partly why I came here. Couldn't stay in that house without her." They stood in the darkness, two people from completely different worlds, connected by loneliness and loss. The thunder rolled overhead and lightning flashed, illuminating Marcus's face for just a moment. In that flash, Amara saw something that made her heart skip. He was looking at her the way she had been trying not to look at him for weeks. "Amara," he said, his voice rough, I think about you all the time. I know I shouldn't. I know it's wrong. You work for me. I'm married. I'm old enough to be your father. You're 42, Amara interrupted. That's not old enough to be my father unless you had a very interesting childhood. He laughed despite himself. This isn't funny. This is dangerous. For both of us. I know. Amara set down her glass, her hand steadier than she felt. I should go. I should forget this conversation happened. But she didn't move. Neither did he. The space between them hummed with electricity that had nothing to do with the storm outside. And then, as if pulled by invisible strings, they moved toward each other. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of what they were starting. Then deeper, desperate, full of all the loneliness and longing they had both been carrying. When they pulled apart, Marcus pressed his forehead against hers. We can't do this. I know. I'm serious. Amara, this can't happen again. It's not fair to you. Life isn't fair, Mr. Bennett. I figured that out when I was 9 years old, and watching my mother scrub floors for people who treated her like she was invisible. Don't call me Mr. Bennett. Not anymore. Not after this. What should I call you? Marcus. Just Marcus. They didn't kiss again that night. Marcus went to his room, and Amara went to her small bedroom off the kitchen, the one Victoria had insisted she use on nights when work ran late. But something had been unleashed, and there was no putting it back. Over the next month, they fell into a dangerous rhythm. Victoria was gone more than she was home, off to this event or that trip, always with an excuse. Marcus started working from home more often. He and Amara would talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told her about the pressure of running a company worth billions, about the father who had never thought he was good enough, about the weight of expectations that crushed him a little more each day. Amara told him about growing up in Lagos, about the scholarship she had won to study international business, about the dream she had to start her own company one day, something small that helped people, not just made money. She told him about her father who drove a taxi and saved every penny so she could have a better life, about the guilt she felt being here while her family struggled back home. You send them money, don't you? Marcus asked one evening as they sat in his study, the sun setting over Atlanta through the windows. Every penny I can spare. It's why I live so simply. Why I took this job even though I'm overqualified for it. You shouldn't have to choose between your education and helping your family. That's life for people like me, Marcus. We don't get to have everything. That's when Marcus made the decision that would change everything. Let me help. Let me pay for your school. Let me... No. Amara stood up abruptly. Absolutely not. I'm not your charity case. I'm not some poor girl you can save to make yourself feel better about your privilege. That's not what this is. Isn't it? The rich CEO helps the poor maid. It's a tale as old as time, and it never ends well for the maid. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and impossible. I know I shouldn't. I know it's insane. But I love you, Amara. For the first time in my adult life, I'm in love. Really in love. Not the arranged marriage. Good on paper love I have with Victoria. Real love. The kind that makes me want to be better, do better. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. You can't love me. We can't do this. Why not? Because you're married. Because I work for you. Because the world doesn't let people like us be together. Because when this falls apart, and it will, I'll be the villain, the gold digger, the home wrecker, and you'll still be Marcus Bennett, billionaire CEO, and everyone will feel sorry for you. Then I'll divorce her, Marcus said, and the certainty in his voice terrified Amara. I'll end my marriage. It's been over for years anyway. Victoria doesn't love me. She loves what I represent. The money, the status, the lifestyle. Marcus, think about what you're saying. I've thought of nothing else for weeks. I want out. I want a real life. I want you. Victoria Bennett sat in her car for 2 hours at night, parked 3 blocks from her own penthouse, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The rage came in waves, hot and suffocating, followed by something colder, calculation. Victoria hadn't built a reputation as one of Atlanta's most formidable socialites by being impulsive. She had learned early in life that revenge, like fine wine, was best served with patience. She pulled out her phone and made a call. "Richard, it's Victoria Bennett. I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning." "Yes, it's urgent. It's about Marcus. I think it's time we had that conversation about the company's financial irregularities." Richard Okonkwo was the one person Victoria knew who hated Marcus almost as much as she was learning to. He was a board member, a business rival from the old days, and a man who'd been quietly gathering evidence of Marcus's more creative accounting practices for years. Evidence that could send Marcus to prison if it fell into the wrong hands. The next morning, Victoria played her part perfectly. She came home with coffee and pastries, kissed Marcus on the cheek, asked about his day. She smiled at Amara when she passed her in the hallway, even complimented her work. If Marcus noticed anything different, he didn't say. He was too wrapped up in his secret love affair to see the trap closing around him. "I'm going to Chicago for a few days," Victoria announced at breakfast. "The charity gala for the Children's Hospital. You remember, darling?" "Of course," Marcus said, relief washing over his face. "More time alone with Amara. Have a safe trip." Victoria didn't go to Chicago. She went 3 blocks away to the Ritz-Carlton and set up her war room. Over the next 72 hours, she met with lawyers, private investigators, and Richard Okonkwo. What she discovered made her blood run cold, but also gave her exactly what she needed. Marcus Bennett's empire was built on sand. The real estate deals that seemed too good to be true were, in fact, too good to be true. Money laundering for overseas clients, bribes to city officials, tax evasion schemes hidden behind shell corporations. Marcus had been playing a dangerous game for years, and Victoria had been too distracted by her own affairs and social climbing to notice. But Richard had noticed. Richard had been documenting everything. "Why are you showing me this?" Victoria asked, sitting across from Richard in his downtown office. Richard leaned back in his leather chair, his dark eyes calculating. "Because Marcus humiliated me 15 years ago, stole a deal that was rightfully mine, cost me $50 million and my reputation. I've been waiting for the right moment to destroy him. You, my dear Victoria, have just given me that moment. What do you want?" "I want Bennett Global. When Marcus goes down, and he will go down, I want his company. And you're going to help me get it." "And what do I get?" "Freedom, revenge, and enough money in the divorce to set you up for life, plus the satisfaction of watching your husband lose everything. Him and his little girlfriend." Victoria smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Tell me what you need me to do." Meanwhile, in the penthouse, Marcus and Amara were living in a bubble of stolen happiness. They cooked together in the massive kitchen, her teaching him Nigerian recipes, him burning rice and making her laugh. They watched old movies on the couch. They talked about the future, making plans that felt both impossible and inevitable. "I'm going to do it," Marcus said one evening, holding Amara close. "I'm going to tell Victoria I want a divorce. I'll give her whatever she wants. The houses, the money, half of everything. I don't care. I just want to be free. To be with you." Amara touched his face gently. "Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back. Your life will change completely." "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed her forehead. "I know the world will judge us. They'll call you terrible names. They'll say you seduce me, that you're after my money. But we'll know the truth, and we'll build something real together. Something honest." What Marcus didn't know was that Amara was carrying a secret that would complicate everything. She had missed her period, had taken 3 pregnancy tests, all positive. She was carrying Marcus Bennett's child, and she had no idea how to tell him. Part of her wanted to wait until after the divorce, didn't want him to think she was trapping him. But the secret grew heavier every day. The night Marcus told Victoria he wanted a divorce was the night Victoria had been preparing for. She had her lawyers ready, her evidence compiled, her next moves planned like chess pieces on a board. She listened to Marcus's speech about love and honesty, and starting over with barely concealed amusement. Then she dropped her first bomb. You want a divorce? Fine. But it's going to cost you everything, Marcus. Everything. I told you, you can have whatever you want. The houses, the cars, half of my personal assets. Victoria laughed. Oh, darling, I don't want half. I want all. And I'm going to get it too. Because I know things, Marcus. Things about where your money really comes from. Things that could put you in prison for a very long time. Marcus's face went pale. What are you talking about? The offshore accounts. The bribes. The shell corporations. Should I go on? Victoria pulled out a folder, thick with documents. I have copies of everything. Every legal deal, every paid-off official, every laundered dollar. Richard Okonkwo and I have been very busy while you've been playing house with the help. You're bluffing. Am I? Ask yourself, Marcus, how well do you really know the men you've been doing business with? How secure are those offshore accounts? How loyal are those city officials when the FBI comes knocking? That's when Amara walked in, and the scene from Chapter 1 unfolded. Victoria's threat, Marcus's pale face, the terrible certainty that nothing would ever be the same. After Victoria left, Marcus and Amara stood in the wreckage of their perfect bubble. She's bluffing, Amara said, but her voice shook. She has to be. Marcus sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. She's not. God help me. She's not bluffing. I thought I was so careful. Thought I'd cover my tracks. What does this mean? It means I could lose everything. The company. My freedom. Everything. He looked up at Amara, and she saw real fear in his eyes. You should go. Get as far away from me as possible before this all explodes. I'm not going anywhere. Amara, I'm serious. When this comes out, it's going to be ugly. The press, the investigations, the trials. You don't want to be associated with me. That's when Amara made her decision. She knelt in front of Marcus, took his hands in hers. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Marcus stared at her, his mind clearly struggling to process this new impossible reality on top of everything else. You're what? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out last week. I was waiting for the right time to tell you. But I don't think there's ever going to be a right time. Is there? Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. She felt him shaking. Didn't know if it was fear or joy or both. A baby, he whispered. We're having a baby. Yes, and I know the timing is terrible. I know everything is falling apart. But I need you to know that I'm here. I'm not leaving. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Marcus kissed her, tasting tears on both their faces. I love you. God, I love you so much. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to protect you and our baby. I promise. But some promises are impossible to keep. Because at that very moment, Victoria was meeting with FBI agent James Morrison, handing over copies of every illegal transaction Marcus had ever made. And Richard Okonkwo was calling an emergency board meeting to remove Marcus as CEO. The empire was crumbling, and it was only just beginning. The FBI arrived at Bennett Global Enterprises at 8 in the morning on a Wednesday, 3 days after Victoria's revelation. Marcus had just poured his coffee when his secretary, an efficient woman named Patricia, burst into his office without knocking, her face ashen. Mr. Bennett, there are federal agents in the lobby. They have a warrant. They're seizing files from accounting. The coffee cup slipped from Marcus's hand, shattering on his desk. The dark liquid spread across documents he would never finish reading. Through his office windows, he could see employees standing at their desks, phones pressing ears, eyes wide with shock and fear. The news was already spreading. Bennett Global Enterprises was under investigation. Marcus's phone rang. His lawyer, David Chun, didn't waste time with pleasantries. Don't say anything to anyone. I'm on my way. They have warrants for your financial records, Marcus. All of them. Someone gave them everything they needed to build a case. Victoria, Marcus said flatly, most likely. This is bad, Marcus. Really bad. We're looking at potential charges of money laundering, tax evasion, bribery of public officials. You could be facing 20 years in federal prison. The office walls seemed to close in. 20 years. His child would be an adult before he got out. Amara would move on, forget him, build a life without him. His child would grow up visiting him behind glass. If Amara even let them visit at all. By noon, the board had called an emergency meeting. Marcus sat at the head of the conference table one last time, facing the 11 members who would decide his fate. Richard Okonkwo sat at the opposite end, his expression carefully neutral, but Marcus could see the satisfaction in his eyes. "Marcus," Richard began, his voice smooth and measured. "In light of the federal investigation and the serious allegations against you, the board has no choice but to ask for your immediate resignation as CEO of Bennett Global Enterprises." "You planned this," Marcus said. "You and Victoria. What I planned or didn't plan is irrelevant. What matters is that you put this company at risk with your illegal activities. You've jeopardized every employee, every shareholder. You need to step down. And if I refuse, then we'll vote you out. Right here, right now. And trust me, Marcus, you won't like the severance package if we have to force you out." Marcus looked around the table at faces he had known for years. Some avoided his eyes. Others looked at him with pity or disgust or disappointment. Not one of them spoke up in his defense. In that moment, he understood what Amara had been trying to tell him all along. He had never had friends, only business associates. He had never had loyalty, only transactions. "Fine," Marcus said, standing. "I resign, effective immediately." He walked out of Bennett Global Enterprises for the last time, his personal items in a cardboard box like a cliché from a movie. Reporters were already gathering outside, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions he didn't answer. His driver had quit that morning. He had to take a taxi home. Amara was waiting when he arrived, her face tight with worry. She had been watching the news, had seen him do the perp walk past the cameras. "Marcus, I'm so sorry." He set down the box and pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, the only thing that still felt real and safe in his crumbling world. "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. What happens now? Now we wait. David thinks they'll offer a plea deal. If I cooperate, give them names, testify against some of my business partners, I might only serve 5 to 7 years instead of 20. Amara's hand went to her stomach instinctively. 7 years. Or I fight it, take it to trial, risk losing everything. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to do what's right. Not what's easy, not what saves you. What's actually right." That night, Marcus sat in his study and made a list of every illegal transaction, every bribe, every shady deal he had ever made. It was a long list. He had told himself for years that everyone did it, that this was just how business worked at his level, that he wasn't hurting anyone. Looking at it all written out, he saw himself clearly for the first time. He had become the kind of man his father would have been ashamed of. "I'm going to cooperate with the FBI," he told Amara the next morning. "I'm going to tell them everything, give them everyone, and then I'm going to plead guilty and accept whatever sentence they give me." "That's very brave," Amara said softly. "It's not brave. It's just the first honest thing I've done in 15 years. But Victoria wasn't done yet. 2 weeks later, her final attack came in the form of a press conference. She stood in front of cameras, perfectly styled, playing the role of betrayed wife to perfection. Tears welled in her eyes at just the right moments. Her voice shook with carefully practiced emotion. "I stand before you today as a woman who has been deceived and humiliated," Victoria said. "My husband, Marcus Bennett, not only engaged in illegal business practices that put thousands of jobs at risk, but he also carried on an affair with our household employee, a young woman I trusted in my home. I am devastated, heartbroken, but I am also determined to rebuild my life and to ensure that justice is served." The question from reporters came fast. "Mrs. Bennett, will you divorce your husband? Did you know about the affair? Are you seeking damages?" Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I have filed for divorce. And yes, I am seeking full custody of our assets, as Marcus's criminal behavior and infidelity have made it clear he is not a man who can be trusted." Watching from the penthouse, Amara felt sick. She's making herself the victim. "Everyone's going to hate me." She was right. By that evening, Amara's name was trending on social media. Old photos from her Facebook account were circulated and mocked. Her age was emphasized in every headline. 23-year-old maid seduces billionaire. Gold digger destroys American family. The comments were vicious, racist, cruel beyond measure. Amara's phone exploded with messages. Her father called from Lagos, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Is it true, Amara? Did you really do this?" "Papa," it's not what they're saying. "I love him. We love each other." Love. Her father's voice cracked. "Your mother and I sacrificed everything so you could have an education, a future, and you throw it away to become a rich man's mistress? You bring shame on our family." "Papa, please." But he had already hung up. Amara sank to the floor, the phone falling from her hand, and wept. Marcus found her there and held her while she cried, but there was nothing he could say to make it better. This was the price of their love, and it was only going to get higher. The plea deal came through a week later. 7 years in federal prison, in exchange for full cooperation. Marcus would have to testify against his business partners, some of whom were dangerous men who didn't take kindly to being betrayed. He would have to forfeit most of his assets to pay restitution and fines. He would lose his reputation, his freedom, his life as he knew it. "Do it," Amara said when he showed her the papers. "Sign it. We'll figure out the rest." "You're gonna wait for me?" 7 years, Amara. 7 years of raising our child alone, of being judged by everyone, of struggling financially. "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm choosing. I love you, Marcus. That doesn't change because things got hard." Marcus signed the papers with shaking hands. His sentencing was set for 3 months away. 3 more months of freedom before the walls closed in. During those 3 months, Marcus tried to make things right. He set up a trust fund for Amara and the baby, using what little money the government hadn't seized. He married Amara in a quiet courthouse ceremony with no guests and no celebration. Just 2 people promising to love each other through whatever came next. He wrote letters to his unborn child, dozens of them, to be open on birthdays and graduations and milestones he would miss. What do you think about Marcus's decision to cooperate with the FBI? Was it the right choice? Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and doing what's right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. The day Marcus Bennett was sentenced, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, their cameras trained on the man who had once been worth $3 billion and now stood in a simple suit, his hands clasped in front of him, waiting to hear how long he would spend in prison. Victoria sat in the gallery, her face a mask of satisfaction. Richard Okonkwo sat beside her, already the new CEO of Bennett Global, already planning how to strip the company for parts and sell it off piece by piece. Amara sat in the front row, 7 months pregnant now, her belly round and prominent under a modest blue dress. She kept her eyes on Marcus, willing him to feel her love across the space between them. People whispered and pointed at her. She ignored them all. Judge Catherine Williams, a stern black woman in her 60s, looked at Marcus over her glasses. "Mr. Bennett, you've pleaded guilty to charges of money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit bribery. The prosecution has recommended 7 years in federal prison. Before I pass sentence, do you have anything to say?" Marcus stood. His voice was steady when he spoke. "Your Honor, I don't have excuses for what I've done. I broke the law. I knew I was breaking it, and I did it anyway because I was greedy and arrogant. I told myself everyone did it, that this was just how business worked. I was wrong. I hurt people. Employees lost their jobs because of my actions. Investors lost money. I betrayed the public trust." He paused, his eyes finding Amara. "But I want to say that I'm grateful for this process, as painful as it's been, because it forced me to look at myself honestly for the first time in my adult life. It introduced me to people who taught me what real integrity looks like, and it showed me what's truly valuable. Not money or power or status, but love, real love, the kind worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth becoming a better man for." Judge Williams studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Bennett, I presided over hundreds of white-collar crime cases. Usually, the defendants show no real remorse. They're only sorry they got caught. But I believe you're genuinely trying to make amends. You've cooperated fully with federal investigators. Your testimony has already led to the indictment of 7 other individuals engaged in similar criminal enterprises. You've agreed to pay full restitution, even though it will leave you with almost nothing." She paused, and the courtroom held its breath. "Therefore, I'm sentencing you to 5 years in federal prison, with possibility of parole after 3 years for good behavior. You'll serve your time at FCI Butner in North Carolina. You're to report in 2 weeks. 5 years, not 7. Marcus felt Amara's presence behind him like a physical thing, her love like a lifeline. He turned to look at her, and she was crying, but also smiling. 5 years they could survive. 5 years, and then their life could begin. After the sentencing, Marcus had 15 minutes with Amara in a small conference room. He held her as close as her belly would allow, felt their baby kick between them. 5 years, Amara said. "We can do 5 years. I might get out in 3 with good behavior. Our child will only be 3 years old. Still young enough to bond with me. They're going to know their father," Amara said fiercely. "I'll bring them to visit every month. I'll tell them stories about you every night. I'll make sure they know you're a good man who made mistakes, but has tried to make things right." Marcus kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you. God, I love you so much. Promise me you'll take care of yourself. Promise me you'll let David help you with the trust fund. Don't be too proud to use the money I set aside. I promise. And you promise me you'll stay safe in there. Keep your head down. Don't make enemies come back to us. I promise." 2 weeks later, on a cold November morning, Marcus reported to FCI Butner. Amara drove him, her hands tight on the steering wheel of the modest used car she had bought with money from the trust. She was living in a small apartment in a different part of Atlanta now, far from the penthouse that had been seized by the government. Her neighbors were mostly immigrants like her, working people who didn't judge her, who brought her food and helped her carry groceries up the stairs. At the prison entrance, they held each other one last time. "I'll write every day," Marcus said. "I'll call when they let me. I'll be here. We'll be here. Your family will be waiting." Watching Marcus walk through those prison doors was the hardest thing Amara had ever done. Harder than leaving Nigeria. Harder than facing the public hatred. Harder than losing her father's respect. She sat in the car and sobbed until she had no tears left. Then she drove back to Atlanta, to her small apartment, to her new life. She got a job at a community center, teaching English to other immigrants. The pay was terrible, but it was honest work, and the people there treated her with kindness. She made friends, real friends, not like the fake socialites who had surrounded Victoria. Her neighbor, an elderly Ghanaian woman named Annie Grace, became like a mother to her. When Amara went into labor 3 weeks later, it was Annie Grace who drove her to hospital, who held her hand through contractions, who was there when Amara's daughter came into the world screaming and perfect. "What will you name her?" Annie Grace asked, holding the tiny baby while Amara recovered. "Hope," Amara said. "Her name is Hope Bennett, because that's what she is. Our hope for a better future." Marcus was allowed to see a photo. He called from prison that night, his voice thick with tears. "She's beautiful. She looks like you. She has your eyes," Amara said, "your strong chin. She's going to be stubborn like her father. I wish I could be there." "You will be. In 3 years, if you're good. Hope will still be little. We'll have so much time together." But life had other plans. Because while Marcus was serving his time and Amara was raising their daughter, Victoria and Richard were not idle. They had bled Bennett Global dry and sold it off in pieces, making themselves even wealthier in the process. But that wasn't enough for Victoria. She wanted Amara to suffer. It started with immigration. An anonymous tip to ICE that Amara's student visa had expired, that she was living the country illegally. Amara was arrested on her way home from work, while Annie Grace was watching Hope. She spent 3 days in detention before David Chun, Marcus's lawyer. could get her released. Victoria's behind this, David said, his face grim. She's trying to get you deported. Can she do that? She's certainly trying. But you're married to an American citizen. You have a child who's an American citizen. We can fight this. It's going to be expensive and complicated, but we can fight it. The immigration battle dragged on for months. Hearings and appeals and endless paperwork. Amara lived in constant fear of being separated from her daughter, of being sent back to Nigeria while Marcus was still in prison, of their family being torn apart. Then came the custody suit. Victoria petitioned the court for custody of Hope, claiming that Amara was an unfit mother. Her evidence was twisted but effective. Amara's expired visa, her limited financial resources, the fact that she was raising a child alone while the father was in prison for serious crimes. This is insane, Amara told David. Victoria has no connection to Hope. She's not family. She has no right. She's claiming that as Marcus's wife at the time of Hope's conception, she is standing. It's a long shot, but with the right judge, she might have a case. Why is she doing this? What does she want? David hesitated. I think she wants to hurt Marcus. And the best way to hurt him is to take away what he loves most. You and Hope. That night, Amara sat in her small apartment, holding her sleeping daughter, and felt the weight of everything crushing down on her. The immigration battle, the custody suit, the loneliness, the judgment, the financial stress. Marcus was in prison, unable to protect them. Her father still wasn't speaking to her. She was alone in a country that didn't want her, fighting battles she didn't know how to win. But as she looked at Hope's peaceful face, she felt something harden inside her. Victoria wanted to fight? Fine. She would give her one. The custody hearing took place on a rainy Thursday in March, 2 years into Marcus's sentence. Amara walked into the courtroom with her head held high, wearing a simple dress she had borrowed from Annie Grace. Across the aisle, Victoria sat with her team of expensive lawyers, looking like she had already won. Judge Patricia Owens, a middle-aged white woman with kind eyes, listened as Victoria's lawyer painted Amara as an opportunistic immigrant who had seduced a married man, destroyed a family, and was now raising a child in poverty while the father sat in prison. Your Honor. Victoria's lawyer said smoothly, Mrs. Victoria Bennett is offering to provide Hope with every advantage. The best schools, a stable two-parent home when she remarries, financial security. Miss Johnson, despite her best intentions, simply cannot provide the life this child deserves. Then it was David Chen's turn. He stood slowly, his expression serious. Your Honor, this case isn't about money or advantages. It's about love. It's about a mother who has sacrificed everything for her child. May I call my first witness? Annie Grace took the stand, her voice strong despite her age. I live next door to Amara and Hope. I see them every day. That girl loves her daughter more than life itself. She works hard, keeps a clean home, reads a Hope every night. That baby is happy, healthy, well cared for. What more does a child need? The teacher from Hope's daycare testified next. Hope is thriving. She's bright, social, well-adjusted. Miss Johnson is always on time for pickup. Always asks about Hope's day. Always participates in activities. She's an exemplary parent. Then David played his trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to submit phone records and visitor logs from FCI Butner. They show that Miss Johnson has taken Hope to visit her father every single month for the past 2 years. She drives 4 hours each way with a toddler, stays in cheap motels, spends her limited resources to ensure that Hope knows her father. She reads Marcus's letters to Hope every night. She shows Hope photos and tells her stories. She hasn't let bitterness or hardship poison her daughter's relationship with her father. David paused, letting that sink in. Mrs. Victoria Bennett, on the other hand, hasn't seen or contacted Hope once in 2 years. She only wants custody now to hurt Marcus Bennett, to punish him by taking away his child. That's not love, Your Honor. That's revenge. Victoria's lawyer stood. That's speculation, and... Is it? David pulled out a document. I have text messages between Mrs. Bennett and Richard Okonkwo discussing this custody suit. In them, Mrs. Bennett explicitly states, and I quote, I want to take that baby away from him. I want Marcus to suffer for what he did to me. I want him to rot in prison, knowing his child is calling another man daddy. The courtroom erupted. Victoria's face went white, then red. Judge Owens banged her gavel. Order. Mr. Chun, where did you obtain these messages? From Mr. Okonkwo himself, Your Honor. It seems he's had a change of heart about his association with Mrs. Bennett. Perhaps because the FBI has now taken an interest in some of his business dealings as well. It was true. Marcus's cooperation had been more far-reaching than anyone knew. His testimony hadn't just implicated his direct partners. It had opened up entire networks of corruption, including some of Richard's dealings. Richard, facing his own potential indictment, had decided to save himself by providing evidence against Victoria, including her scheme to take Hope not out of love, but out of spite. Judge Owens looked at Victoria with undisguised disgust. Mrs. Bennett, did you really think you could use this court as an instrument of revenge? Did you think I wouldn't see through this? Victoria's lawyer tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, my client's motivations don't negate the fact that she can provide better. Enough! Judge Owens cut him off. I've heard enough. This petition for custody is denied. Furthermore, Mrs. Bennett, if you attempt to contact Miss Johnson or her daughter again, I will consider harassment and act accordingly. Miss Johnson, you're doing a wonderful job with your daughter. Keep it up. Amara felt her knees go weak with relief. Auntie Grace caught her, held her up. You won, child. You won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Amara didn't care. She had her daughter. That was all that mattered. David drove them home, protecting them from the cameras. What about my immigration case? Amara asked in the car. David smiled. That's been resolved too. Turns out Victoria was behind the anonymous tip to ICE. Now that her credibility is destroyed, the immigration judge has dismissed the case. You have your green card. Amara, you and Hope are safe. That night, Amara called the prison. When Marcus came on the line, she was crying so hard she could barely speak. We won. She can't touch us. We're safe. Marcus wept with her. I heard. David called. God, Amara, I'm so proud of you. So proud of how strong you've been. I had to be. For Hope. For us. I'm getting out in 6 months, Marcus said. I made parole. 3 years instead of 5. I'm coming home to you. 6 months later, on a bright September morning, Amara stood outside FCI Butner with 3-year-old Hope on her hip. Hope wore a yellow dress and clutched a sign she had helped Amara make. Welcome home, Daddy. It said in crayon and glitter. When Marcus walked out, thinner and older but with light in his eyes, Hope hid her face on Amara's shoulder, suddenly shy. But Marcus didn't push. He just walked to them slowly, drinking in the sight of his family. Hello, Hope, he said softly. I'm your daddy. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Hope peeked at him, her thumb in her mouth. Then she reached out one chubby hand and touched his face. Daddy, she said, testing the word. Then again, more certain, Daddy. Marcus took his daughter in his arms for the first time and broke down completely. 3 years of pain and loneliness and regret poured out in tears he couldn't control. Amara wrapped her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the parking lot, a family finally whole. Life didn't magically become easy. Marcus couldn't get his old job back. His reputation was destroyed. They lived in Amara's small apartment, and Marcus took a job as a consultant for small businesses, using his skills to help immigrant entrepreneurs navigate American business laws. The pay was a fraction of what he used to make, but the work felt meaningful in a way his old job never had. Amara finished her degree online, graduated with honors, and started her own small business, a consulting firm helping international companies understand American markets. It was exactly what she had dreamed of back in Lagos. Marcus helped her build it, using his connections and experience. Slowly, they rebuilt their lives. Victoria remarried, a plastic surgeon 15 years younger than her. She moved to Los Angeles and was rarely heard from again. Richard Okonkwo went to prison for his own crimes, serving 4 years. Bennett Global was broken up and sold. The empire was gone. But on Friday nights, Marcus and Amara sat in their small living room with Hope between them, reading stories and eating takeout and laughing. and they were richer than they had ever been in the penthouse. They had learned the hard way that love wasn't about money or status or what the world thought of you. It was about showing up day after day, choosing each other when it would be easier to walk away. 5 years after Marcus got out of prison, Amara's father came to visit from Lagos. He was older, grayer, but his eyes softened when he saw Hope, now 8 years old and full of questions and energy. He saw the small but tidy apartment. He saw how Marcus looked at Amara, how they worked together, how they had built something real from the ashes. "I was wrong about you," he told Amara quietly one evening while Marcus was putting Hope to bed. "I thought you had thrown your life away, but I see now. You knew what was valuable. You chose love and integrity over easy judgments and comfort. I'm proud of you, daughter." Amara hugged her father and cried. A wound she hadn't known she was carrying finally beginning to heal. 10 years after that day in the courtroom when Marcus declared his love for Amara, they stood in a small church in Atlanta, renewing their vows. This time they had guests. Auntie Grace, now elderly but still sharp. David Chun and his family. Friends from Amara's business. Former inmates whom Marcus mentored. Hope, now 13, stood as her mother's maid of honor, beautiful and confident and kind. "I can't promise you a penthouse or a private jet," Marcus said, holding Amara's hands. "I can't give you the life I once had, but I can promise you honesty, partnership, a love that chooses you every single day. That's all I ever wanted," Amara said. "That's all I ever needed." They kissed, and their friends cheered, and somewhere in Los Angeles, Victoria watched a clip of the ceremony on social media and felt nothing. She had her own life now, her own concerns. The bitterness had faded, replaced by indifference. That's how these stories really end. Not with dramatic confrontations, but with people moving on, finding their own paths, learning their own lessons. So what's the moral of this story? Maybe it's that love is worth fighting for, but not at the expense of integrity. Maybe it's that money and status mean nothing if you're empty inside. Maybe it's that redemption is possible for those willing to do the hard work. Maybe it's that the person who cleans your house might see you more clearly than the people who attend your parties. Or maybe the real lesson is simpler. That life will test you. It will bring you to your knees. It will take everything you thought you needed and show you what you actually can't live without. And if you're very lucky, you'll find someone willing to walk through fire with you. Someone who sees your worst and chooses to stay. Someone who makes you want to be better than you ever thought you could be. Marcus and Amara learned that lesson the hard way, but they learned it, and in the end, that made all the difference. Before we end, we want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Have you ever had to choose between doing what's right and doing what's easy? What would you have done in Amara's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, moved you, or made you think, do us a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we have more incredible stories coming your way. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the best love stories are the ones that survive the worst circumstances.